So now that we've created all of this information, the next thing we're going to do is put it all on a drawing sheet. And so to do that, the first thing we need to do is create a sheet. So let's go to our View tab, and you can see here there's a button that says Sheet. So the first thing it does when you create a sheet is it wants to know what title block to use. And you can use the default Autodesk title block, or we can use one from our library. And this data set that you downloaded at the beginning of the class has a CAD Teacher 30 by 42 title block that we're going to use. So if we click load here, we could jump over into our BIM 101 folder with the shortcut we created really early on. And you can see here it's going to filter down to just the RFAs that we have, which are the Revit families. And we're looking for the 30 by 42 horizontal. So I'm going to go ahead and click open. And make sure we have the BIM 101 title block selected and hit OK. And this is the title block that we will use. So now that we have the sheet created, we can go ahead and take our schedule, the room schedule here, and when we put elements from the project browser on here, all we do is select it, drag, and then you can see here I can drop it onto the sheet. And then now that I've got it ready to go on, I can click to place it. And schedules are unique because of the way that we can modify them, but I'd like to get it to like a single line. And you can see conference room and some of the perimeter is returning to the next line. And so I'm going to go ahead and adjust this. And you see these toggles at the top? I can drag these around and push them and pull them a little bit to make the schedule look the way I want. So I'm going to take the name for the room names and drag it out until conference room is all on one line. And I'll do the same thing on perimeter and drag that until all the perimeter is on one line. And then I can place the schedule, just say kind of in the top corner here. Okay, and that looks pretty good to me. So the next thing we could do is we can bring over our floor plan. And what I recommend doing is we'll go into it. So I'll go to level 1. That's the plan I want to bring on. The first thing that I want to do here is I want to adjust my crop region so that it's not going to be overly large. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the crop region and then turn on to show it. So I've activated it, and then I can bring in these toggles so it's closer to the plan here. And I'll go ahead and leave this one out to the side because I want to leave the elevation. But what I could do is I could take the tag and kind of drag it around like that. And so it'll show up on the view. But the elevation itself is way out here. So if I wanted to bring this line in, I would need to select this triangle piece and then actually bring the cut for the elevation in closer so that I don't miss that as well. So I can bring these guys in. And the key here is to try to make it as tidy as possible, because if you leave these things really sloppy and then put it on the sheet, you're actually just creating more work for yourself. So that looks pretty good. I'll go ahead and do the same thing to level 2. And this one I'll just kind of bring in the crop region tight like we did before. Okay, looks good. And I'm going to jump back to my sheet, which is now shown in the Sheets section of the project browser. And then I could bring those plans onto the sheet. So I'll start with level 1, and I'll click and drag it onto the view. And then left click again to place it. Okay, and then level 2, I can do the same thing. And what's unique is it's going to try and line these up. So you can see as I drop it in, you know, it wants these to line up so that they match. So the grids and everything lines up here. So the viewport that we're looking at here is actually made of 2 things. We have our viewport, and then we have our view title. And the view title may not necessarily always go in exactly the way you want it to. So you can modify that. So one thing to keep in mind is the view title is always attached to the viewport. You can see as I move it around, it's going to go with it. But when I select the view title, it'll move independently. But if I want to make changes to the view title, this is where it gets a little crazy. You actually have to select the viewport, and you can see that these toggles are activated. So if I wanted to use a shorter view title, I could, and then move it over. I could definitely do that, but I need to be able to select the viewport first. And then you can adjust the extents or move it around like I've done here. So then let's go ahead and bring on a section that we worked on a little bit. And this is going to line up the same way that the plans wanted to. So you can see that's lined up. And the real key here is if you look at the tag now, it's filled itself out. And if you look, this is sheet A101. And it's section 1, view 3 here on sheet A101. And this is just like any parameter. If I were to change this A101 to some random numbers, when we look at the tag now, it's been populated as well. So this is all being pulled from the information that's within the database. Okay, so we can fill out some of this information. So we can call this, plans, sections, elevations. And we can go ahead and give it a name here. And so the project, we can go ahead and we'll say BIM 101 here. Actually, this would be your name, so we can say your first and last name. And then this is one parameter that contains 2 different elements. And so the project name, we'll call this one BIM 101. And then for the address, we'll just go ahead and say, CAD teacher VDCI. Okay, and we can do the same thing here. So project number, we can call it BIM 101. The issue date could just be the due date. And this would be your initials here. And don't worry about putting anything in for the checker. Okay, so the last view that we want to put on here, and I'm just going to adjust these around a little bit. And what I'm doing is I've selected both of these views, and I can use the directional pad to move them around. And I'm going to put my east elevation, that view that we kind of embellished a little. I'm going to put that one on here. And it's not going to line up with our floor plan, but it will line up with the elevation or the section that we created. Okay, and then I'll just kind of adjust the view title like we were talking about. I can move the title, and then I can adjust the extents by clicking the viewport. And then I'll line this title up with the ones above and to the side. You can see they want to line up with each other. And that's going to do it for our BIM 101 class. And so following up with this, we'll go into BIM 201. In that class, we're going to explore this same model, but it'll be a little bit more detailed. And we're going to take a look at the concepts that deal with modeling families and making our own custom families. We're going to look at creating a multitude of schedules, getting into the annotation of elements, so the more of the drafting techniques and tagging of elements, and also looking at creating details and more complicated 3D geometry and looking at walls and curtain walls in much more detail.